which is the best practices arm of PHCC's offering. Business coach. I think you have a lot of qualifications, Beth, but we're really glad that you're here talking to us today about recruiting and retention. And I have found this to be maybe the most important uh, topic of the day because in a world where in an industry where we're undermanned, people jump around to get the best deal, going to the next place, thinking that grass is greener, right? Well, we want to make sure that we would like to make sure that we have healthy culture and that people want to stay, especially when it comes to our trainees and all of that when they are coming up and they we want to make sure that when we're raising them, when we make that investment, that we have a place that they want to stay and invest and build and all of that. So hope I didn't steal any thunder there, Beth, but
Not at all. Not
thanks
at
for
all.
joining us.
Did
This is
it really
great.
well? I'm really happy to be here, and I thank you for having me. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart because in all of my years of coaching, it's always, why do people keep leaving? Why are people leaving my business? And it's some of the things that we can do to improve our business is so easy, and yet we don't realize that we're making the mistakes that we make. So the last time that we spoke, we kind of spoke about what psychological safety is. And just as a reminder, psychological safety is trust, but it's trust as a group. So it's a sense of security and confidence an individual feels in expressing their thoughts and opinions to a group of people or without fear of negative consequences. So that's kind of what psychological safety is. And I want to tie that into your retention and how you use that for retaining. So lots of times in our business, we have no choice. We have to implement policies or create new processes. And when we hire new people, we don't really recognize the consequences of the changes that we're making, and we create some negative vibes or some negativity that causes people to either leave or not be attracted to our business. So let's talk a little bit about some of those things. But first, I want to again, psychological safety and trust. Is it a moral issue or is it a behavioral issue? And that's a big question in a lot of people's minds. So the largest component of psychological safety is the trust factor. And you got to trust the people that you work for, right? It's the central characteristic of being ethical in life and being able to create a relationship through, one party's not unfairly soliciting or exploiting the vulnerabilities of another party. But by definition, trust is a moral issue because it's based on integrity and honesty. But our ability to trust is really also built on the behaviors of others, like their past performance, their reliability, trusting acts of things they do, their contact, and their characters. So in research over time has consistently shown that companies with a strong ethical and trusting culture are more profitable than those without, which is common sense, right? Prospective employees want to work for a company that has a great reputation, that treats all the stakeholders fairly. The behaviors are good, which leads to greater productivity and lower turnover. So in that, customers prefer to patronize with companies that are ethical and trustworthy, which results in higher sales and wider margins, right? So then I would say that you have to assume that trust is perceived as a moral and a behavioral issue, and psychological safety is part of that. So some examples of that would be things like if I'm talking about moral safety, I'm looking at things like stealing, lying, cheating, dishonesty, gossiping, backstabbing, things like that. That's examples of moral issues that you might have in your business. Examples of behavioral issues would be around late to meetings, shutting down, not returning calls, overcoming or overcommitting to things. That breaks trust too. And we sometimes don't look at those things as we should, realizing that what a great effect they have on the things that we're trying to accomplish in our business. So let's look at a couple of the things that you can really think about in that psychological safety. So what behaviors create the trust that you're looking for? Right here, these are the behaviors that we want. And I'm not going to read all of them. I'm just going to kind of run through a couple of them. You know, we want that open, honest, respectful communication. We want being kind and genuine to people. We're looking for empathy. And when we're looking at, I was just read in something about the Zoomers. That's our generation of people coming in right now. They're in their early 20s to mid 20s. They're coming into the workforce. Why are they wanting to work for your company? What is it that they're looking for? And people say that they're not loyal, and that's really not the case at all. They're very loyal. They're most like the baby boomer when it comes to work. If you create a sense of trust, that includes these types of things: the care, the integrity, the inclusion, all of that. So what are the things that we have to look at that don't create that trust, that corrode the trust that we have? You know, saying one thing and doing something else, or not being present, not showing up when you're supposed to, um, you know, embarrassing them in public. They really don't respond well to that. They shut down, they shelter. And why do they do that? Why do you think about that? A lot of these kids that are coming in, and I call them kids because their level of maturity has been a little bit delayed because of the pandemic that we went through. They weren't able to see their friends for a long period of time. They couldn't go to school with them. They didn't have the same experiences that you and I might have had when we went to school. They were unable to go attend their graduation. So they were in seclusion. They had to find ways to do things to keep themselves occupied. So they're a bit more, I don't want to say temperamental, they're a bit more emotional than any of us would ever like to believe is possible. But there's a reason for all of that. And you have to remember that they have to have a chance to catch up. We've got to get their emotional security back up to an adult level. So some of the things that we do and some of the leadership mishaps that happen in our business, totally unintentional, sometimes intentional. But these are leadership mishaps that cause people to leave, cause people the lack of one would be like a lack of transparency. It's really all of these things diminish psychological safety in the mind of your team. So you're not being transparent to me. Think about a young person coming in and they've been on their left to their own devices for months, for a year, and now you're not being transparent. So you're withholding information from me, which a lot of information had been withheld from me. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel good. I feel like I'm being left out, and they already felt left out. There's a micromanagement. When we micromanage, there's another leadership mishap. Constantly managing and controlling every aspect of your team's work makes employees really feel undervalued and undermined. So their confidence just leads to a natural level of mistrust when they're micromanaged, because they feel you don't trust them. So why should they trust you? What's your ulterior motive? The inconsistencies in decision making, leaders that frequently change their minds or make decisions that just kind of seem arbitrary, it really creates a lot of confusion and a lack of direction. And so they now become, emotionally, they don't know what they're supposed to do, and they don't know how to respond to that. Things like when leaders fail to take responsibility for their own actions or hold themselves or team members accountable. It's very frustrating when you're in a situation where the leader, the person that I'm supposed to look up to the most, and the person that is representing me or supposed to be representing me is not protecting me. And I just had this happen recently in one of the companies that I coach, where the employee left because he felt like there was no way to be protected. His the owner of the company was managing the leader, the boss of this individual, in a way that he, as the leader, didn't feel protected, so he couldn't protect his own employees, his direct reports. So it really does have a trickle down effect. Favoritism, lack of empathy, all of those are things that leadership mishaps that are really great opportunities to connect with your employee and do something far more for them that's going to build that trust, keep that trust going, and make them want to be a part of your team. A couple other things that are really worth mentioning and may not be happening in your business, or it may, but again, some things that I recently noticed, and so I thought they were worth documenting. A lot of us focus on sales in our business, but leaders who focus on sales and on money and monetizing everything tend to be looked at as either greedy or self-serving. And that quickly erodes trust and encourages more of a what's in it for me kind of culture. Do you really want a culture of people that it's all about what's in it for me? Because those are the people that will be cutthroat. They're the people that are going to undermine other people on your team. That's going to create and cause an erosion of your culture and the wrong kind of culture that you're trying to establish. The ostentatious, we can make a lot of money in the plumbing business, but we don't need to show off everything that we make. Not all companies are as profitable as others, but what I see in a lot of companies happen, we're cutting back, or we're having initiatives that are taking things away from the employee, and the owner pulls up in a brand new car, or a brand new Maserati, or so they're not the the processes or the thought process goes straight to the employee as, oh yeah, he's cutting all of my benefits so that he can go buy stuff for himself. So you got to be really careful. And then there's a couple others that are really worth mentioning. And one, everybody thinks this is a great idea, and at the end of the day, it's not. And that's parenting. You're not your employee's parent. So a leader that tries to fix their employees rather than accepting who they are and giving them guidance on things they might be able to do better, or uh, you come across as treating them like a little kid, that they're stupid or that they're uneducated or they are not independent thinkers. And believe me, they're all very much independent thinkers. It's you want to control what they're thinking. So don't try and be their parent. Try and be their boss. Stay being their boss. Give them, find every opportunity to say yes instead of no, and create an environment where your employees really feel excited about sharing their ideas, about expressing their opinions, because that's really what they want. That's what they're looking for. If you want to retain your employees, you've got to put some of these practices into play. And if you can put them all into play, wonderful. If you can't, I'm not expecting anybody to change overnight, but these are all really important things. And I would tell you the worst of all worst things of leadership mishaps is silence. It is the killer. And let's talk about that for a minute, because think about what happens when you're silent. Think about all the mishaps that have happened in a silent environment where team communications are broken down between management and employees, giving zero visibility to a leader about the initiatives that he's trying to present. If you don't have psychological safety, your people become silent. They don't talk to you. You lose communication, and you can't get the things done that you're trying to accomplish. So it's really, really important for leaders to be aware of the potential pitfalls and actively work towards building and maintaining the trust within their teams, keeping people oriented, stay people oriented. So any questions so far or comments?
I have a question. So when you're talking about that silence, say we do have say our employees are silent, we're not getting feedback. Do we engage them? What would you recommend?
Well, first of all, I would ask. I would say, hey guys, I can't do this alone. You are my team. You're like my board of directors here. I need you. Help me. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you want, but be sincere about it, right? I would ask for their help. And if you can't get it in a public format, talk to them one-on-one. Do a one-on-one with them and say, hey, any ideas you have out there? I'm really flexible. I want to be able to utilize ideas that are interesting to you and be different and unique, and absolutely ask. Don't allow them to continue to be silent. And later on in the presentation, I'll give you some examples of employees being silent. You'll understand what I'm talking about, because that is not helpful to anybody. So let's go through these blunders. Okay, there's a series of these that there's 7 of them here that I really want to dig into a little deeper, because we all do it. We're all guilty of it. And let's see how we can avoid some of them to keep our businesses top notch and to keep that retention. We want to keep that retention. So flavor of the week, they make lots of flavors for a reason. However, the flavor of the week can be incredibly positive or incredibly negative when it comes to psychological safety and trust. On one hand, introducing new ideas and exciting ideas that can really foster that creativity that you're looking for, that employee engagement, which can really contribute to your safety edge, right? Your psychological safety edge. It shows that the organization is open to experimentation. It encourages individuals to share their thoughts, ideas without judgment and fear. That's great. However, think about the negative effect it could have. If we practice the flavor of the week kind of mentality, employees don't feel certain about a direction for the company or for the organization. It becomes kind of a hesitant to fully invest in any idea or any procedural change or anything like that, because it's going to change next week. What difference does it make, and I do get this a lot. Oh, this week I'm gung-ho about making sure everybody's following the proper procedure for answering their phone. And then next week, we never hear about it again for 6 months until it becomes a major problem and it's annoying me, the leader, and then I'm going to bring it up again. And that's you need to change the habits. And so stick with 1 or 2 ideas and until they stick, until they really stay there. Maintain that trust with your employees. Strike a balance between introducing new practices and maintaining consistency. Everybody likes consistency. Few people really celebrate change. So get the consistency part going. I'm going to make this change. I'm going to be consistent with my messaging. I'm going to stick with it, and we're going to get it until everybody's on board, or those employees that will choose to be on board are on board. And then I have to look at the employees that choose not to and why. And then, are they the right employees for my company? But, again, if we lose an employee like that, that's a different story than if we lose an employee that we want. So it's very important to make sure that you're not doing a flavor of the week. The All About Me company is another example of, for the good of the company, right? Everybody says for the good of the company. What exactly does for the good of the company mean? Because there are all kinds of examples for the good of the company that may not resonate with me as an employee. For the good of the company, you can make everybody take a 20% decrease in their pay. Is that really good for me? Well, you have a great culture. Everybody wants the company to stay in one place. If you're true and honest with your employees and you have a good culture, they're willing to do a short-term adjustment if it really is all about the company and for the good of the company. But if policies are perceived as unfair or arbitrary, or there's a lack of communication around them, if there's not a stopping point, a start and stopping point, if there's it's going to erode that safety barrier that you've taken so much time to create with your team. The employees have to feel that their safety, their needs, their concerns are all being considered. So whenever you're doing something for the good of the company, how is it for the good of the employee? Really, really look at that. So a couple of the things that I look at for things that are really for the good of the company, that always come off as positive, are things like a flexible work environment, employee development programs. If they're not mandatory, if they're, hey, if you want to grow in the company, here's an employee development program for you. Health and wellness initiatives, diversity and inclusion policies, things like that. Any kind of transparent communication it's good for the company, it's good for the employee. And those are the kinds of things that you're looking for. Anybody have any other examples for the good of the company? Okay. So let's talk about the next one, that are blunders we don't want to make. Um, Being agile and flexible, it's one thing to be agile. Inflexible, we can't afford it. We just can't. Negative effects of being inflexible. You know, I'm an employee. I can't deviate from these rigid regulations and rules and procedures. That in me as an employee would make me feel fear of negative consequences for making a mistake or taking a risk. Don't you want your employees to sometimes take healthy risks? If you're so rigid in what you're doing that there's no room for movement, then there can't be room for growth. Nobody wants to be in that environment on a regular basis. Employees need to be given some freedom to make decisions and have some control. Those employees that never feel empowered or um, um, have no control feel undervalued, and that lack of an autonomy causes a lack of trust, and it also decreases their motivation and engagement. People unengaged are not people that stay with your company. Inflexibility can also hinder innovation in your workplace. If you think about that, when employees feel constrained or to those rigid processes or rules, they're less likely to come up with a new idea, to share a new idea, to take a risk. To that rejection and punishment that comes from inflexibility is so stifling to the creativity of your business, and so stifling to making your business attractive to the outside world, because your employees are not going to go out and talk about your company in a positive way if they don't feel good about your company. And you're really depending on their word of mouth to say what a great company you are. It's one thing for your customers to feel you're a great company, which you have to be. Anything that's focusing on the client you have to be amazing. But your internal customer is your employee, and they have to be self-promoting as well. They have to be promoting themselves as well as promoting the company to future employees. And a lack of that just leads to other problems for you. Unfavorable competition. So an example of unfavorable competition in my eyes is pitting your top sales guy against your lowest sales guy. That would be horrible, because who's ever going to win? I mean, the top sales guy already has a big ego. The low sales guy says, why bother? Why should I try? So when you do that kind of competition, it's unhealthy or toxic, and it creates a hostile work environment. So that intense competition, again, it brings that fear of being judged or criticized by now, not by you, the owner or the manager, but more by your peers. I never want to be embarrassed by my peers. Do you? I mean, that would be a horrible situation. So it would prevent it actually, instead of being beneficial by creating that competition, it makes it unbeneficial to you, and it creates a hard culture. So every person for themselves mentality never works in any environment. And again, it becomes a what's in it for me environment. So the other thing that unfavorable competition does is it increases your stress level. So a lot of what's happening in the workforce today is top of mind conversations are about well-being. Okay, the well-being of your employees, the personal well-being in the trades industry, especially on the construction side, but in trades in general, the suicide rate is the highest suicide rate in the entire country. Why do you believe that to be? So it's high stress, high burnout in this business. It just is. There's deadlines that always have to be met. There's sales quotas that always have to be met. There's timelines. I mean, there's just all this stuff that's happening, and then you're pitting one employee against the other. It just creates a stress level that is unhealthy. And so this is a well-being thing that you need to avoid and be very careful with. And then unrealistic goals, and looking at the unrealistic goals, you know, if I can never meet the goals that you're setting for me, it's not motivating. It's not something that I want, but we do it all the time. I see clients all the time. Well, my trucks are break even is $40,000. Well, who created the expenses that made your break even $40,000 a month? Because some guys are never going to be able to do it. Does that make them bad? Does that make them a bad employee? No, it doesn't. So we have to make sure that we're not diminishing their psychological safety by setting unattainable goals. So you have to get that fear of failure out of the way and that lack of trust in leadership out of the way. So all of this, same types of things happen on the unrealistic goals that happen with unfavorable competition. And then we have the bonus. Oh, you were serious? You wanted a bonus? Really? The reality is that we create bonuses. Why do you create a bonus? What's the purpose of a bonus? I'm asking all of you.
Recognition.
Incentivize.
Incentivize, recognition. Okay, good. So a bonus should never be in lieu of them having a good pay, right? We pay fairly and bonus for performance, right? But a lot of times what I see is the bonuses are unattainable. They're making, like, again, let's go back to the other example where we have a truck. The truck has to do $40,000 a month to attain their bonus. If you've got a guy who can only do, who the entire time he's ever worked for you, he's only done $25,000 in his truck, and he has a month where all of a sudden he did $30,000. Wouldn't you want to reward that? Why are you setting the bonus so high that you can't reward incremental progression, right? So it becomes, when the bonus structure is unattainable, it comes across as a broken promise, an unfulfilled expectation. Nobody wants to work in that environment. So if you are doing bonuses, and many companies do, revisit it. See if your bonus is attainable by everybody. And if it's not, how are you presenting that to everyone? Because it does make, you don't want it to be a demotivator. You don't want to make them disengaged. A bad bonus program does both of those things. It demotivates and it disengages your employees. And that is counterproductive, right? So. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is the silence, which I had mentioned before, but it is an invisible hazard. In the absence of silence, in the absence of you speaking, silence becomes very loud. Okay, so when leaders create an environment of fear, or employees become reluctant to speak up, or they're reluctant to share their ideas or to express their concerns because maybe they fear retribution or embarrassment or some kind of negative consequence, then as an owner or as the leader, where do you go with that? What happens? Here's what actually happens in real life situations. Think about some of the things that have happened over time when the environment's been silent. Think of companies that have had problems when that silence happens. So I'm going to give you an example of some of that silence. And looking, this slide here was about intimidation, but I'm going to go to the silence one instead. Environments that have no psychological safety. Okay, that's everything we talked about today. Everything to create that psychological safety. You have things happen like Enron. Okay, Enron's highly competitive and fear-driven culture discouraged employees from raising their concerns or questioning their impractical or unethical practices. And ultimately, Enron went bankrupt and took a lot of people down, and a lot of people lost their retirements. It was a horrible situation. Another example, think about Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo a few years ago, they had a huge scandal where the employees were pressured so much to meet a certain unrealistic sales target that they created false accounts or unethical behavior by opening unauthorized accounts, which at the end of the day, who lost in that? They lost clients, they lost profitability, they got sued out the gazoo and lost a lot of money, and their reputation was completely destroyed, and they're having to rebuild still to this day. And then the other one I would mention of something recent that I can think of is Fox News. So Fox News, they had a culture at the Fox News where um, there's been lots of lawsuits and allegations, let's say, characterizing harassment, intimidation, fear, things like that. And the employees didn't report it because they were afraid they'd be fired. And so it led to an extremely toxic environment until they were finally exposed and it had to be, they had to contend with it. So these are huge examples of the detrimental effects on of not having psychological safety in your workplace, including the unethical behavior, the diminished trust, the negative organizational outcomes, all of those things. But it emphasizes the importance of fostering a culture that prioritizes psychological safety so that you can promote employees' well-being and the success of the organization as a whole. Silence is not golden, okay? It may be at the dinner table if you're tired of listening to your kids all day, but silence is absolutely not golden when it comes to the workplace. So it's just really, really important for organizations to really consider all the optics and the potential impact of any policy changes that you choose to make on how they're going to affect employee morale, and then to really mitigate those steps. If you have to do something, make sure you communicate it well. And if it's something that's short term, communicate that. If it's something that's permanent, communicate why, and then make sure that management is walking the walk that for the information that you just had to relay. So, any questions or comments? I know there's a lot of information and I kind of dumped it on you. We don't get much time, so I wanted to make sure I shared as much with you as I could.
Appreciate you coming on and going through your presentation.
My pleasure.
I feel like we're doing pretty good on all these points. So
that's amazing.
It's always good to hear, to be reminded of the importance of it.
That's amazing. Even the very best companies that I work with will fall short once in a while, and I'll go, well, of course that person was upset or that person left. Did you think about this, right? And it's always good to revisit it because there and exit interviews, things like that, for why somebody can expose some of these things that maybe you thought you were doing great at that you weren't. Most companies do a pretty good job, though.
Beth, I did follow along, put some, as you were talking about stuff, put some stuff in the chat, some comments here and there for helping people follow along with what you were doing there. And I don't know if any of that generates any questions, but it seems to me that silence is the greatest asset we have to get an indicator that there's something going on with our culture that we're not, and awareness. You got to be aware, right? If you're not looking for it, you're not aware that there's something going on, you're never going to see it. And I think that's my biggest takeaway today.
Hey, Beth, this is Don. Question on that topic. What about going the other way? Too much, like not over communicating, or maybe communicating on things that maybe you should have been silent.
Well, and I think that's possible, right? You need to be a smart leader, and like, I don't need to know if you're struggling to make payroll. I just need to know that I'm going to get a paycheck, right? So you need to be careful of what it is you're communicating, because they don't understand. A lot of your employees don't understand finance. They say they do. I mean, they know how to spend their paycheck. They know how to make cash out of it and spend it all, but they don't understand it. So when it comes to the finances of the company, you need to be very careful how you relay that information, but the optics on it, you can relay, right? There's certain things, we had to raise our prices because that's fine. But we don't say, unless we raise our prices, we're going to go bankrupt. That's not a good way to give that information, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you totally. Be careful what you relay. Be intentional. As an owner or as a leader, you have to be intentional. So whatever you say needs to have a purpose behind it.
So Beth, how do you feel about with what you just said? How do you feel about companies that are very transparent about the numbers and the books and stuff, so that everybody's aware of what's happening and what the goals are and all of that?
I'm okay with sharing it to a certain extent. And it depends on the company, because if the books aren't clean, if the owner is putting a lot of personal expenses into it, you can't share down to the bottom line. And normally you wouldn't share down to the bottom line anyway, unless you're an ESOP or something like that. So I think that if you take the time to educate your employees on where the money goes, take $100 bill, and 1% of that money pays for this, and 2% of that money pays for this, and 5% goes to this. And when they see the money just kind of go away from that $100, like to pay salary, to pay wages to everybody on the company, 40% of the money's gone, right? And so they think you're making all that money, but if you can make it in smaller terms that they can understand and that they can really relate to, you'll be much more successful.
Hey, Beth, I'm just curious, and while it can be a touchy topic with some, and I've seen this in businesses that I've run. But my question is, what about topics not to touch on and things I think about, because it could go either way? I think politics, social issues, those kinds of things. As a leader of an organization, how would you advise a leader to touch on those topics, stay away from them?
I think that as long as if you're going to have a political conversation, it has to not be party specific. It has to be more like, right now, this is what's happening in politics. This is how it's going to affect our business. If this happens this way or this, so if you vote this way, this is how it could affect our business. If you vote this way, this is how it could affect our business. You're free to vote however you want, do whatever you want. I just want I'm educating you, right? So that's one way. That's one way. Always religion. I have quite a few of the people that I've coached in the past that they bring religion into their workplace. They run their business, and that's their culture. So that's the people they attract, right? So depending on what your culture currently is, depends on how you can have that conversation, right? If I'm coming into the organization and I'm an atheist and everybody there is a Baptist, or and goes to church every Sunday, I'm not going to fit into the culture very well. And so you have to set your hiring and retention based on the culture that you're trying to build or that you already have built as well.
I find it best to, in those situations, let the employees ask the questions rather than put a finger in their chest and say, this is the deal.
Let the employee lead the conversation. However, you have to monitor that closely, because I've been present and at a table when two employees started talking politics and they ended up in a fist fight. Not a good situation.
No. Any other questions for Beth? Beth, do you have anything you want to add last minute?
I don't think so. I hope that the information is beneficial to you all, and gives you a moment to take pause and really think about the things that you can do in your business to improve it. If there's any way that I can help you at all, you can reach me at Dopkin@naphcc.org. That's the National Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors, right? National, naphcc.org. And I'm more than happy to help you answer questions or have a conversation with you. QSC is open to everybody. So.
And maybe tell everybody what QSC is.
So for those of you that don't know, Quality Service Contractors is QSC is an enhanced service group of PHCC. As a member of PHCC, you have access to QSC, but it is a subscription base or membership base where we have coaching, we have networking, we have internet site for communication back and forth with service contractors, and it really does focus on the service contractor and best practices for your business. So plumbing and HVAC.
How long has QSC been operating?
We've been around for 30 years now. On our website, you can go on and see some things. I would like to invite all of you. We are going to Denver. In July. We'll be in Denver for our what we're calling Catalyst, because Catalyst can mean so many things, but it's the event that can change the future direction of your company. We have a whole lot of stuff going on there, and if you go on to the QSC-phcc.org, you can pull up our website and you can read all about what QSC is and about the event and the keynote speakers and some of the things like that will be at that event. But we'd love to have you. Everybody's welcome. It's a great event.
Uh-oh, I think I put the thing in wrong. What is it? QSC www?
No, just put in QSC-phcc.org. Just like you have two H's.
Yeah, I did it wrong.
PHCC. There you go. That's what it is. And that'll take you right to our website. And then you just explore around there and see the different things. But we have education partners, and we have some resources on there that we're more than happy to have you share because you might need some of them. So by all means, click on our website and see how we can help you. It's a lot easier than the PHCC national website. So hopefully that helps you.
Important distinction.
Yeah.
That's really great. I really like this topic. We have one more session in March on this topic before we move to leadership. This is really great stuff. I think it's super important today that we pay attention to our culture and what's going on around us, so that we can hedge, any fallout or get ahead of any problems and make things better for everybody. Because when we're doing that, it's better for everybody, not just one or two people, right?
Exactly. Yeah, next
All
one
right.
would be your strategic advantage using psychological safety and how to create your strategies around. So we will talk next month.
That's great. Thank you so much, Beth. Appreciate all of you. Yeah, appreciate all of you guys being here. Go on the website and register for the next one. I believe it's up on the website already. I don't know if we have the topic on there or not yet, but
hey, Mike. I'm fine. Hey, can I call you right back?
Yeah, sorry. Good thing I'm the host. I can mute people. I didn't know I got the power.
You have power. Boy, you like that control, don't you, Todd?
Oh gosh, that's terrible. So everybody, I just want to thank you for being here again. Go to the website and sign up for the next one. Hopefully we grow the audience here, Beth. I think we had 4 or 5 people last time. This time we have 11 or 12. I think somebody might have left. I'm not sure, but really want to thank you for being here, and thank everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks. Have a great day.